Our civilization is clearly breaking down. What is actually real? How much are we being lied to? And is modern spirituality even serving us at all? In this video, I'm going to answer all of these questions. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and for over 25 years, I've worked together with Archangel Michael to help thousands of people navigate the events on this planet so that they can stay on a positive path of ascension and evolution. Our civilization has been breaking down since 2020. Today, I'm going to share why modern spirituality is no longer serving us. We need an entirely new understanding of our planetary situation. Now, there are three things contributing to this breakdown. The first was the pandemic, and the second is unconscious use of the internet, social media, and AI. And the third are versions of religion that keep us trapped in old ancient mindsets that never acknowledge the universe that we actually live in. Now, it's easy to blame the controllers of this planet for all of our problems. But in order to accomplish what they have done so far, they need a substantial number of willing human participants. And they have certainly had that for a very long time. The majority of people on this planet rarely question anything unless it becomes so obviously diabolical that it can no longer be ignored. And by then, it is often too late. So why is this so serious right now? What we are experiencing right now is unprecedented because we are in a war for total control of the entire Earth. And that is something that has never happened before in our entire human history. We need to shake off decades and centuries of old beliefs so we can deal with our situation as it actually is right now. And we can do that, but we are going to have to confront some things that might be a bit uncomfortable to talk about. See, if we don't clear a lot of old spiritual assumptions out of our minds, we will not be able to find the strength, the power, and the creative insight necessary to deal with our true situation. Now, before I get into this, I have some exciting news. On Wednesday, October 15th, I will be opening up a free masterclass about the hidden secrets behind your spiritual awakening. Let me explain why I created this. There is a lot being said about how our awakening is so good for the planet and so good for everyone else. But almost no one talks about why it is meant to be a gift for us as individuals. Did you know that every awakening is different and uniquely customized to you and your personal cosmic journey? I think we have to get past the vague assumption that every awakening happens mainly for the good of the planet, and we just get to go along for the ride. There are too many spiritually sincere people who are questioning what this whole thing is really all about. Is it really true that we are mostly here for the benefit of everyone else? Or is there a hidden treasure inside our own spiritual awakening that we have yet to tap into? And that's what I'm going to be showing you in my free 3-part masterclass. I'm going to show you how to find peace and integration with your awakening so that you can truly benefit from the gift that it actually is. You can sign up right now by clicking the link in the description below. Now let's get into the topic of today's video. Let's find out if modern spirituality is actually serving us at the level that we really need. Or is there a better way to spiritually understand our situation? Now, I like to call modern spirituality the luxury path. I call it that because it often doesn't require anything of you other than to believe certain things. You don't have to truly evolve. You don't really have to change. And you don't have to create anything. All you have to do is attach your identity to certain prescribed beliefs as sanctioned by some outside authority. And once we attach our identity to someone else's thoughts, then we no longer need to engage with our own common sense. We are spared the uncomfortable task of asking pertinent questions. We tend to attach our understanding of spirituality to some esoteric, abstract path that is not really grounded in the reality that we live in. And this is exactly why we got in so much trouble with the pandemic. See, something strange happens when you think that spirituality is anchored to some other place somewhere out there. What happens is that you don't put enough weight on what is happening here on Earth. You lose all sense of context and proportion, and thus you become highly vulnerable to being manipulated. And that's what happened in 2020. People were absolutely blindsided by the controllers' incredibly efficient attack on our humanity. I mean, they executed that entire effort against us with surgical precision because we were collectively so unconscious. Now, the goal was twofold. First, they wanted to sever all of our natural, psychic human ties to one another and replace those ties with fear, anger, and division. Second was to put in place the social infrastructure that would be necessary for their next step. They wanted us to get used to the idea of being validated by digital means rather than by human connections. They wanted us to believe that a digital identification was necessary for our safety. And then the next step was to put in place a planet-wide AI control grid that would digitally absorb our entire human identity. And that is what they're working on right now. Part of the genius of their plan was to condition us to hate and fear each other and be unable to find any common ground. So all they have to do now is to keep us fighting and distracted while they quietly complete their diabolical plan. Now, that is the ultra simple version of what happened. And instead of talking about the politics of this, I want to focus on the state of our spiritual understanding of life itself and why we are even on this planet. Because that issue is at the crux of why we allowed ourselves to get so screwed up. I want to propose that we have no idea about what is going on here and why we are even here in the first place. And for that, I may have to say some uncomfortable things. Maybe that's the medicine we need right now, because whatever we've done so far has not worked. I want to talk about Christianity and modern, eclectic, New Age type spirituality. So if you are firmly wedded to either of those belief systems, you may want to turn this video off. And if you keep watching anyway, just remember that I warned you. So don't come after me in the comments. Now, there's a lot about New Age spirituality that arises out of Christian beliefs. The chief parallel between them has to do with suffering, rituals, and death. Let me explain what I mean, starting with Christianity, because that was here first. Let's start with the focal point of Christianity. Take a look at these two images. Here is an image of Jesus doing what he came here to do, which was to teach and to demonstrate what we are all supposed to be capable of. But that's not what Christians worship. Here's an image of what Christians worship as the absolute center and focal point of their entire religion. Apparently, Christians prefer to worship the macabre, grotesque, human blood sacrifice of this amazing being. The murder weapon of the crucifix is literally their spiritual talisman. They hang it on their walls. They wear it proudly around their necks, and they put it on buildings. They literally pray to the image of this horrific blood sacrifice of their God. Look at these two images together and ask yourself why. This makes no sense at all. This is clearly Christ consciousness. But what kind of consciousness is this? And why? Now, we're not going to be able to answer that question because there is no logical answer. But we can certainly look at the results of embedding this grotesque image into the hearts and minds of people everywhere and telling them that it's the image of their salvation. And then many Christians wonder why they are always being attacked by demons. Well, maybe it has something to do with their demonic focus, because I've seen that many of these people are pretty obsessed with Satan. And let us not forget that human and animal blood sacrifice is a known satanic ritual. Now, Christianity as a culture does have its good side. So I'm not trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It has definitely had a positive, stabilizing influence on society. But what the heck is this? They say, oh, it's good because he died for our sins. But what does that even mean? Have you noticed that they literally have no explanation for what that actually means on any practical level? What does that mean to anyone living today? Are we supposed to be inspired by this image? Does this mean that you get a free ticket to heaven? I guess in that case, you can sin all you want because Jesus did the hard part of enduring the punishment that you probably deserved. Not really, of course. I'm just trying to make a point. So what does this lead to? And how does it influence modern day New Age spirituality? It imprints something very deeply into the collective subconscious. It says that suffering and death are deemed by God to be the keys to salvation. It says that martyrs are at the top of the spiritual hierarchy. Now, if we translate that into modern spirituality, it looks something like this. Suffering is good because it's how we learn, or it's necessary due to karma. It's payback for something bad you did in a past life. Suffering is an important part of duality because it helps us appreciate the good side of life. It motivates us to strive for something better. The subtle nuance behind this is that pain is what we need to inspire us, which is completely backwards. It means that we have no vision of our own, and thus pain becomes more important than love because we are that unconscious. We are saying that we have to literally be shocked by pain to get out of our unconscious state. Does that sound like self-motivated or visionary evolution to you? I think it sounds more like acceptance of a very primitive, low-level mindset. And that's not who we really are. Now, in ultra-modern spiritual times, it morphs into this. You might have heard this yourself. It's okay if you're suffering because that's what human evolution feels like. And you know that spiritual awakening that you didn't understand? Well, you don't need to understand it because you have awakened for the benefit of all humanity. You are here to shift the collective. So if you feel exhausted and miserable in that effort, no worries because you are not alone. There are plenty of other lightworker martyrs to keep you company. And if that feels terrible, it's okay because martyrs are good. Martyrs are what we need to save the rest of us. I mean, look what happened to Charlie Kirk. He has been elevated to a Christian martyr that is second only to saints and to maybe even Jesus himself. The truth is that he had a political, religious agenda, and he probably did a lot of good by debating young people. And he had a tremendous amount of political influence. In fact, I think he was primarily a political force. But the Christian religion has turned him into their latest modern-day martyr. I mean, I keep waiting for him to be proclaimed a saint. Somehow he is bigger in death than he ever was when he was alive. And that's just kind of weird because he's actually gone now. So here's my larger point. This is the kind of consciousness we're dealing with. We glorify death and see it as a wonderful escape mechanism. Whenever someone dies, we believe that they instantly turn into an angel and the best person ever. We also embrace suffering as God's will and as being completely normal and necessary, no matter how horrible it feels. And if you're into the New Age, you will say that the universe brings you suffering to teach you a lesson of some kind. That's why you should accept it and learn from it. You know the saying, right? Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So here's where we are in a nutshell. On this planet Earth, we are stuck at a level of consciousness that can always justify suffering and death. We are experts at making any excuse for why these experiences are necessary and important. Now, you might think this is no big deal and ask, what difference does it make if people want to find positive reasons to excuse such things? Doesn't that make everyone feel better? Well, how much of a role do you think this consciousness plays in our planet-wide predicament of endless war, violence, and destruction? We are creators after all, and we can certainly provide a level of consciousness that allows such things to flourish. Now, modern-day New Age spiritual thinking goes like this. Well, we'll just go to 5D because we're the good guys. We'll just ascend, and the bad guys will be left behind. How is this any different from the Christian view of the rapture? Well, it's not any different. It's exactly the same thing. Listen, you guys, until we give up our spiritual need to find bizarre forms of justification for suffering, punishment, and death, we are never going to get out of this repetitive cycle of the rise and fall of our earthly civilizations. And now we risk being the latest civilization to fall, because that's the trajectory you put yourself on when you insist on psychologically and spiritually excusing the existence of suffering and death. That's the path you put yourself on when you continue to justify the existence of these horrible, terrible experiences. It doesn't mean that you like them. It doesn't mean that you don't want them to go away. But the big problem is that we have it all spiritually justified. That translates into, it's okay, we hate it, but we have to accept it because it's God's will, or it's the way life is, or however we want to frame it. That is the equivalent of digging our own evolutionary grave yet again with yet another civilization that falls. So where do we go from here? What do ascension and evolution really mean? Ascension is just another word for evolving into higher states of consciousness and into the realms where those higher states are actual reality. Ultimately, we are meant to evolve out of duality. Real evolution does not happen just because you believe certain things. It doesn't happen because of whatever stories you have embraced and choose to identify with. Real evolution happens by way of vision, desire, and effort. It is not some magical thing that happens to you. In reality, You are the source of your own evolution or lack thereof. It's not like all of the awakened people in the world are going to make you evolve. And likewise, your own awakening cannot make someone else evolve either. So we need to come back to a neutral place and rely on our hearts. We need to stop relying on stories and religious rituals to somehow get us to the promised land. It hasn't worked so far, and it's not going to suddenly start working in the future. I don't know what is going to happen to this planet. I don't think there are any guarantees. Right now, it doesn't look so great. So here's what I suggest we do. Come back to center. Come back to basics and to some spiritual common sense. If you want to know what you should be aiming for, your heart is holding that message for you right now. And I can almost guarantee that your heart is not going to make excuses for the existence of death, pain, and suffering. Instead, it's going to tell you that such things should not exist. It's not going to tell you that you must pay the price of suffering in order to evolve. It's going to tell you to evolve beyond suffering by embracing a vision where suffering literally cannot exist. And that, my friends, is the vision that we all need to aim for. We need to listen to our hearts. We need to focus on the reality that evolution can be measured by how much happier and how much more empowered you are learning to be, by how much you are able to embody the vibration of peace and love. Evolution has nothing to do with suffering. It has to do with leaving suffering behind. Ultimately, true evolution requires a high degree of intelligence and discernment. And we all possess that naturally. We just have to learn to listen to that common sense spiritual part of ourselves. So I guess I've given you guys a ton of food for thought. I just want to invite you to question certain belief systems that so far have not yielded any real results. And you will definitely find the answers to those questions right within your own heart. Because your heart is connected to the entire universe, to God, to the Creator, to the source of all that is. You have a direct link to everything that you could possibly need. You have a direct link to the most profound, infinite, incredible love that you could ever even imagine. That is what is keeping us all alive. Now, before I go, I want to remind you to sign up for my Awakening Secrets Masterclass that opens on Wednesday, October 15th. It's completely free. I think it will help you a lot in terms of learning to answer many questions for yourself. The class will only be available for a short time, so click the link in the description to sign up for it now. Then I can send you reminders about when it starts and when it ends, so that way you don't miss anything. And I would also love to hear your thoughts about the topic for today. Have you ever thought about any of this? And what is your perspective on the situation on this planet? Leave me a comment and let me know so we can continue this discussion. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe so that we can continue this journey together. Okay, I think that's all for now. Remember to dive into the amazing spiritual wealth that you carry right within you. And with that, I'm sending you all love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends, and I will see you in the next video. Namaste.